Does creatine help with energy and healthy aging? Or is it just for building muscle? Here's the direct answer. It's not just a muscle powder. Creatine helps your cells regenerate ATP, the molecule that powers everything you do, so it plays a genuine role in energy. The strongest evidence by far is for preserving muscle and strength as you age, paired with resistance exercise. The evidence for brain and cognition is promising, but it's still early. I'm going to walk you through exactly where that evidence is strong, where it's merely promising, and where the gym marketing version of the story has gotten it wrong because creatine has spent decades typecast as a powder for young men chasing bigger muscles, and that reputation is now badly out of date. So what is creatine, and how does it make energy? Creatine is a compound your body already makes and also gets from food, and its job is to help recharge cellular energy. Inside your cells, energy is spent as ATP adenosine triphosphate. Creatine, stored as phosphocreatine, donates a phosphate to rebuild that ATP almost instantly during short, intense efforts. More phosphocreatine stored up means a faster energy top-up when you need one. This isn't a niche role. A 2024 review in Frontiers in Physiology found that phosphocreatine plays a pivotal part in sustaining ATP, with roughly 95% of the body's creatine stored in skeletal muscle and the remaining 5% in high-energy demand tissues, including brain cells. Your body makes creatine from 3 amino acids and tops it up from meat and fish, so if you eat that way, you already carry a reasonable baseline. Is creatine just for muscle, or does it help everyday tiredness too? It's fairer to say creatine supports the systems behind energy than to call it a stimulant. Creatine doesn't work like caffeine, it won't give you a jolt. What it does is improve your capacity to produce energy for short, hard efforts and support the muscle you use to move through an ordinary day, which is a different, slower kind of energy. That honest framing matters, because the marketing usually isn't honest. Unlike caffeine, which simply blocks your brain's tiredness signal, creatine adds nothing you can feel in the first hour. Its contribution to feeling less drained is indirect by helping you preserve strength as you age. It helps you stay active, and staying active is one of the most reliable defenses against everyday fatigue there is. Where is the evidence strongest? Right here: creatine, muscle, and aging. From your 30s onward, you slowly lose muscle and strength as part of normal aging, and creatine, when it's combined with resistance exercise, is one of the few supplements with real evidence for helping to offset that. The key phrase is combined with resistance exercise on its own. Creatine does little. The International Society of Sports Nutrition's position stand reports a meta-analysis of 405 elderly participants, mean age 64, who experienced greater gains in muscle mass and upper body strength with creatine during resistance training, concluding that creatine supplementation can help prevent sarcopenia and bone loss in older individuals. And sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength, isn't rare here at home. A 2025 study of older adults in Selangor found that among 469 people aged 60 to 88, 10% had confirmed sarcopenia and 38.4% had possible sarcopenia, and those with sarcopenia were far more likely to suffer falls. That's the real-world stakes behind muscle as you age, staying steady on your feet and independent, not vanity. And it's worth being precise about the order of operations. The resistance training does the heavy lifting, and creatine helps you get a bit more out of it. It's the junior partner, not the main event. What about bone strength and the risk of falls? Bone is the quieter half of the same story, and it matters because falls are what turn lost muscle into lost independence. In that same Selangor study, people with confirmed or severe sarcopenia had roughly 10 times the odds of falling compared with people who didn't have it, and were similarly more likely to lose the ability to manage daily activities on their own. Beyond muscle, the evidence suggests creatine paired with resistance training may also help protect bone in older adults, which lines up with why weaker muscle and bone together raise fall risk in the first place. As with the muscle evidence, the training is doing the real work here. Creatine is a supporting role, not a standalone shield against fractures. Does creatine help the brain as we age? This is the area generating the most excitement and the most overstatement. So here's the careful version. The brain signal is real, but it's early. Because the brain is an energy-hungry organ that also relies on the creatine-phosphocreatine system, it's biologically plausible that topping up creatine could support cognition, and some newer studies now point that way, especially in older adults. A 2026 systematic review in Nutrition Reviews looked specifically at older adults across 6 studies, 1,542 participants, aged 55 and up. 5 of the 6 studies, or 83%, reported a positive relationship between creatine and cognition, particularly memory and attention. But the same authors are blunt about the limits. The evidence is still limited, and high-quality clinical trials are warranted. In plain terms, that's a promising signal worth watching, not a settled brain booster. Who tends to benefit most, and how much is actually safe? If your stores are already full, extra creatine does less. The people who respond most are the ones who start lower. That includes women, whose bodies make less of their own creatine, at roughly 70 to 80% of the rate reported in men. Vegetarians and vegans, since creatine comes mainly from meat, fish, and poultry, so a plant-based diet starts from a lower baseline, and older adults generally. On dose and safety, the ISSN position stand describes 2 simple options: a faster loading approach of about 5 grams, 4 times a day, for 5 to 7 days, or simply 3 to 5 grams a day, with creatine monohydrate the most extensively studied and clinically effective form. On safety, that same body states that supplementation up to 30 grams a day for 5 years is safe and well tolerated in healthy individuals, from infants to the elderly, with no compelling evidence it negatively affects kidney function. The one common, well-evidenced effect is a small, temporary gain in water weight in the first week, not fat, and not harmful. One important note: this changes if you have reduced kidney function, are pregnant, or take regular medication. Please speak to a doctor or pharmacist before starting anything new, and see a doctor for persistent, unexplained fatigue rather than self-treating with a supplement. This is general wellness education, not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So, to recap the direct answer, creatine is an energy molecule, not just a muscle one. It helps recharge ATP through the phosphocreatine system. The strongest, best supported reason to care about it as you age is muscle and strength, and only when it's paired with resistance training. The brain evidence is a real, promising signal, but it's still early, and it isn't a settled fact yet. If you want the full graded breakdown, every study, every number, every caveat, the complete guide is on the wellspring.com.my, where we cover energy, fatigue, and healthy aging for a Malaysian audience. And if you're not sure whether any of this fits your own situation, that's exactly what a real, no-pressure conversation can help you map out.